So in continuing with our last encouragement about Goliath and facing the giants in your life, I wanted to share two things where God gave me victory over two giants in my life. The first one was the giant of unforgiveness. You say, what are you talking about? When I was younger, when I was around 12 years old, my stepdad would be abusive to my mom. He would come in drunk and alcoholic. He would come in after taking drugs, and he would come and beat up on my mom. He would push her down. He would throw her down. He would throw things at her. He would hit her, and I hated him. And at 12 years old, he did this for several years, but one day he came in drunk and he pushed my mom to the ground, and I couldn't take it anymore. And I grabbed a knife in the kitchen and I wanted to go after him and kill him because he was hurting my mom. And my mom got up and said, no, Tony, go. No, it's okay. And she finally threw him out of the house. But from 12 to 18, I had such anger and unforgiveness for that man that I vowed that when I got old enough, I was gonna kill him. I just hated him so much. And I couldn't wait to see him again. 7 years, 8 years, I was 12 at 18, so 6 years later, I was walking down the street in Brooklyn, New York. I was walking down the street, and there he was. I was 18. Now, at 12 years old, I also gave my life to the Lord. And I was learning about God, and I was learning about love, and I was learning about salvation. I was learning about forgiveness. I was learning about loving your friends, loving your enemies, and everyone in between. But still, even with all the stuff that I was learning, I had that anger and bitterness in my heart. And for a while, I had forgotten about it because I was learning more about God and learning more about trying to live as a man of faith, as a young man of faith. But here he is I was 18 years old. I'm walking down the street, and all of a sudden I see him, and everything came back to my head. All my memories of everything that I saw him do, all the attacks, the pushes, the hits, the smacks toward my mom came back. And when I saw him, I started to ball my fist up, and I was walking towards him, and I wanted to give him one as hard as I can. And the closer I got, I was getting angrier, thinking of everything that he had done. But then all of a sudden, I'm walking down the street as I'm getting closer to him, and I hear the words in my mind, forgive him. I'm like, what? I'm not trying to forgive him. It was God's small voice in my head that said, forgive him. And I'm like, no, Lord, you saw everything that he did. You saw all the things that he did, all the pain, all the hurt, all the suffering, all the trials, all the trouble, all the stuff that he put my mother through. I'm not going to forgive him. I don't want to forgive him. So I keep walking, and I'm trying to rationalize this in my head. And again, I hear the voice in my head, forgive him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to forgive him. I want to beat him up. I want him to feel like my mother felt when he hit my mom. And the closer I got, I kept hearing, forgive him, forgive him, forgive him, forgive him. And I can't explain to you, but there was such a weight on my shoulder, all this weight that I carried on my shoulder because I wanted to take him down. But as I got closer, and I got about 10 feet, and I got about 5 feet, and then that's when he saw me. And he showed fear in his face because he had heard that I wanted to come after him. And he looked at me and just froze. And I kept walking towards him, and I got this close, right to his face. And I did that. I took everything in my power to fight this Goliath, this giant of unforgiveness and hatred and anger in my life. But then out of nowhere, I said, I forgive you. And I walked past him and kept walking down the street. And I can't tell you that at that moment, I defeated that Goliath, that giant in my life. And that whole weight that was on my shoulders for those 6 years of hatred and anger and unforgiveness and bitterness all came off my shoulders like a ton of bricks. And I felt such relief and victory. Not because I wanted it, but because I listened to God's voice and He gave me the power to overcome that giant of anger and hatred in my life. So when I tell you, you could do it, you could do it with God's help. And then the second time that God gave me the victory was when we were teenagers. I was a teenager, and my brother Richie and I, Richie was a young tyke, maybe like 11. I was around 14. And we were playing in Bay Ridge. And Bay Ridge was all predominantly an Italian and Norwegian and white area. And my dad used to live in that area on 73rd Street. And so my brother Richie and I went and we played at a park there on 73rd Street. And we were there playing when these 4 big white guys came into the park, all bigger than us. And Richie was skinny, scrawny, runt. And I wasn't that big myself. So they were way taller than us, at least a foot over me, and probably maybe 2 feet over Richie. So I had told this story before, where I had mentioned that in the park, those 4 guys wanted us to leave because they said they don't want any, they used a derogatory term for Spanish people, playing in their neighborhood and their park, and that park wasn't for us. So, I was a little wise guy then, and I told them, well, this park is, this is a free country, and I could play in this park if we want to play in this park. Well, they said, well, if you don't leave, we're going to take you out. Well, I said, well, you're going to have to take us out. So I told Richie, okay, Richie, if they come forward, I want you to run and get Dad. So they started to come forward, and I jumped on all 4 of them, and we all fell on the floor. And Richie got up and he started running, and he scrambled in between cars, and he went to get my dad. One of the guys got up and went after Richie, but he couldn't get Richie because Richie was going back and forth in between cars. This was in Brooklyn, so you know how cars are parked. And I was there with 3 guys, and we ended up starting a fight, and I gave him my licks against 3 guys. I mean, I was getting pretty beat up, but I was giving just as much as I was taking. And finally we were on the ground, and I found an opening, and I got up and I started to run away to try to get out of the park while they were trying to get me. And as I was running out, I heard jingling, ding, 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 ding. And when I turned around from the park entrance, there was my dad. And he was running down with Richie to come to see what was going on and to protect me. And when I saw my dad, all of a sudden I got a victory. I got a victorious feeling. I got this victory mindset. And I got brave and I got courageous, and I turned around and I put my hands up and I said, all right, come on. Come on now. Because I was no longer afraid because my dad was there. I was no longer afraid because my father was there against these 3 Goliaths that were going against me. And that's the mentality that we have to have, that when we're facing our Goliaths, Our Father is there against your enemy. And when your Father is there, you don't have to be afraid. Because he who fears God need fear no man. And that's the mentality that we have to have when we're facing our Goliaths. Our Father is there, and he gives us the strength and the courage to overcome and to fight back whatever that Goliath is in your life, that giant. What I hadn't told you before, I did tell this story before, but what I hadn't told you before was those guys ran away when they saw my dad. But what I hadn't told you before is that a few days later, I saw one of them by himself. And then he thought he was all that, and he was going to try to threaten me again to get out of his neighborhood by himself. Well, I said again, I'm not going nowhere. And he tried to grab me and try to fight with me, but I was able to take him down since he was by himself. I took him down. And when I took him down, I was able to put him in a headlock, and I put him on the ground, and there was a glass bottle on the side. And I grabbed the glass bottle and I broke it and I put it to his face. And I said, you know, if I was as bad as you say I am, I would take this bottle and I would cut you up. Okay, maybe I should have not have done that. But anyway, because I was a Christian, you know, I didn't do anything. What I did say was, you see, if I was a bad kind of guy that you think I am, I would cut your face because you keep coming after me. And I have to keep defending myself. Or we can throw this bottle away and we can stop this nonsense and we can be friends. And you can accept the fact that I'm going to be here. He didn't answer. But I threw my bottle away and I got up and I left him on the ground. He looked at me, I looked at him, I walked away. A few days later after that, my brothers and I were playing stickball, which we used to play with my dad a lot. And the guys saw us playing and they were coming right at us. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, here we go again. Here we go again. I had a stickball bat in my hand, so I was about ready to use it. But they came to us and they said, yo, you want to play stickball? You guys against us? And I was like, what? Now, these guys are all bigger than us, so I kind of figured they're going to beat us. But anyway, my dad was looking out. He came over. He said, what's going on? Everything okay? Because he knew that those were the same guys. They said, yeah, we just wanted to play stickball with your sons and wanted to know if they wanted to play. And my dad, just to make sure, he stayed with us and he played. And you know what? We ended up playing with these guys, stickball. They beat us. Not by much, because my dad was a good hitter. But we were all smaller than they are, and they hit pretty good. But you know what? We played them on and off for over a year after that. We won some, they won some. But after that, we became friends. And I say all that concerning Giants and victory because we could have allowed the racism that they had toward us to get us angry and bitter and lash back at them. But God gave us the opportunity, even in the midst of the fighting and the issues that were going on, God gave us the victory over the giant of hatred and bigotry and racism that they had, and God allowed them to have a change of heart, and also us, because I was getting ticked off already with them every time they see us trying to get at us, and I wasn't liking it. But God changed our heart, God changed their heart, God changed my heart. So no situation is too great for God to change people's hearts. No giant is too great for God to give us the victory and for God to change. So I share those two stories with you because I want you to see that I'm not just talking about it, I'm being about it, because it's been real in my life, seeing God giving me victory over giants in my life. So if he's giving me victory over giants in my life, then he can give you victory over giants in your life. All right, so let's hear about your victory over your giants. Keep in touch. All right. God bless.